Welcome back to Scotch and a Beer, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I hope you have a delicious adult beverage of choice. I also hope you have a Merry Christmas. I'm coming to you with my super sweet Christmas sweater on and a Tootsie Roll hat because that is the most Christmassy beanie that I actually have. If you like these videos, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I drop these suckers every single Monday. In the last episode, I headed off to Dirty Jersey to hang out with Danny, George, and crew and do a little spotting where we got our first top 16 ever. Sick. I also copped a new shell for my Formula Drift car build for $500 US. In this episode, I wanted to go over some of the stuff that leads up to my Formula Drift season. And this includes one of the worst mistakes I could have made, hiring an agent to help me solicit sponsorships. Now I am going to be fast forwarding through this video a bit, so I'm going to have to come back in other Scotch and a Beers and talk about the rest of the stuff that happened in 2013. But first, a Scotch and a Beer. For the beer this time, I'm going to be going with an Italian classic, the Birra Moretti La Authentica. Recipe since 1859. The Italian passion for brewing. Oh, it's a lager, so lager up. Again, this is one of those beers that tastes like what you imagine a beer to taste like, so I guess that's a good thing. And for the Scotch, I got a special one. My good friend and guy that I've talked about throughout this entire video series, Santiago Romero. He is my hairstylist. He is a drift guy. He is a media guy, an all-around rad dude. Got me this for my birthday, which was just a few days ago. Kind of sucks having your birthday right next to Christmas because it's always like, hey, here's your combo gift. And you're just like, thanks. Santi got me a bottle of the Laphroaig cairdeas. The Laphroaig cairdeas. Triple wood, original cask strength. So that means this one's going to be not watered down with water whatsoever. AKA not watered down, which is what it just said. It's matured in ex-bourbon, quarter, and oloroso sherry casks. The most richly flavored of all Scotch whiskies. Friendship is cairdeas in Gaelic. I can't say it properly, but hey, whatever. Creamy flavors of vanilla and fruit with a suggestion of sherry sweetness. Perfectly complement Laphroaig's signature peatiness. Sweet! So this is going to be a more fruity style Laphroaig, which I do love and have drank many... Oh. What? Passport to Isla. Claim your free square foot of our island. I will definitely be claiming a free square foot of their island. That is awesome. Huh. Okay, well, I will now be owning a little bit of an island in Scotland. So to all you peasants out there that don't own a square foot of an island, buy some Laphroaig and you can have one too. Nice and dark. Probably a bit on the younger side. You know that heavy smell you get when you're like following behind a truck that is carrying either asphalt or tar, or it's just like overpowering and intense? That's what my first thoughts when I sniff this Scotch is. It's like the Glenlivet 12 had a baby with a peat monster, and this is the Scotch that you end up with. It is glorious. Thank you so much. I appreciate this, Santi, and I do love this Scotch. You'll have to come over for some soon. Moving right along, I had just gotten back from New Jersey. Danny George had dropped me off in Albuquerque. I had scooped up a shell for $500. Now what? I had no idea, honestly, but literally no idea. I had decided that I wanted to run Formula Drift, and that's all I knew at this point. I had reached out to some buddies of mine that were in Formula D, Aasbo, Matt Field, and kind of, what do I do next? Like, what the shit do I do next? I don't know. They were like, well, you need to start getting sponsors. And I was like, oh, great. Anyway, I just started a new gig at a local clothing store called Factory Edge. I needed the cash, and Keith, the owner, was very interested in what I was doing with drifting. He said it was punk rock and he really enjoyed it, and it was kind of like motorcycles, which he had just gotten out of dirt bikes from getting hurt too much, and drifting could be his new outlet. So sick. It's nice to be partnered up with people that kind of share the dream and the vision and the passion that you do. And I was just doing their social media stuff, making a presence online, running specials, taking pictures of new products that came in. Easy stuff, part-time, awesome. Plus, Keith and his brother Kory were nice enough to let me store all of my drift car shit in their warehouse where they did the intake for all of the clothing that they got for their store. So that was awesome, because I was car homeless at this point. Now, this relationship would end up being a blessing and a curse, but I'll get into that later. And like I said, I had reached out to some people and said, hey, what are the next steps? What do I need to do to start my career in Formula Drift? And the first thing that kept coming up was sponsorship. You need to get sponsors. You have to have sponsors to do Formula D, unless your family pays for all of your stuff, which happens a lot in Formula Drift. And good Lord, I hated dealing with this shit. Now, there are three major things that I really don't like dealing with: sponsors, getting sponsorship, keeping sponsors, etc., etc., etc. The first one is dealing with companies that have been burned by 5 other drift guys that never delivered on their promises, never went anywhere, and now the sponsor has 5 times the amount of bad taste in their mouth from sponsoring people than they would have in the past. So now you have to break through all those layers of defense and say, hey, I'm actually going to deliver on what I said I was going to deliver. But convincing people of that is very, very difficult, I would learn. I mean, it's 100% justified. These companies should put up the defenses on getting burned over and over and over again by really crappy people in the drift industry. Totally get it. I have now been on both sides of this boat. Number 2, every time I solicit a sponsorship, I feel like I'm begging. And I hate that feeling. I'd like to let my past actions and my personality and everything kind of be my resume, but that's never how it works. Doesn't matter. They could care less about that stuff. How many Instagram people do you have? How many YouTube people do you have? How many Facebook people do you have? Those are the hard numbers. That's what we can see. That's what we're going to cater to. And at that point, I had none of any. I didn't have a fan page. I didn't have an Instagram. I just didn't. I was screwed. And attached to that, it's like pulling teeth once you actually get sponsors to actually get the parts that were promised in a timely manner. So again, you're back to begging for the parts that were agreed upon at your original thing. And anyway, it's just a nightmare. Number 3, I have a hard time making myself sound cooler than I actually am, which is a huge part of pitching yourself as a sponsorable person. You pretty much have to be a blowhard, cocky braggart to actually get anywhere in drifting, sponsorship-wise at least. And it helps being that way when you're out on the competitive field as well. Now, if you're new and you're trying to break into the sport, this is an extremely difficult task. It's a lot easier once you've been seasoned to make things happen for yourself. And that was kind of my goal. I wanted to give myself 2 full seasons to actually gain momentum and make some things happen. And if I didn't at that point, I was going to cut it off and that would be it. There are quite a few people in Formula D and even Pro-Am who are really, really, really good at this part. They may be a shit driver, but my God, can they sell themselves in a sponsorship pitch. I am just not one of those people. I like to talk to people, but I cannot talk about how awesome I am, how I will sell so many products for you that it's not even funny, how I am the end-all, be-all. You don't need to look at anybody else. You need to look at me only, and I will represent your company better than anybody else can. I just can't do that. And that would kind of be my foot in the door for stumbling down the stairs that would be my FD career. Nothing like starting out like that. Now I'd started this whole process in 2012. Once I kind of even had an idea that I was going to do Formula Drift, I had started reaching out to companies and seeing if there was any interest to see if I would even do it in the first place. So I actually had been doing this for like 6 months at this point. 3 months hard, but 6 months total of actually soliciting sponsorship from people. I had no built car. I had an idea for a car, but I didn't actually have a car. I had no proposal. I had no actual knowledge of how to garner sponsorships, other than the ones that I actually currently had, which were kind of mostly just luck. And I had a few parts here and there, but nothing substantial that would actually propel me forward in my drift career. Of course, as you know, what you need to succeed in drifting or any professional motorsport is a substantial budget, so you can have spare parts of everything, your team is dialed, you have matching uniforms, everything looks great, and you can present that as a whole package. I had none of that. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Now, after not getting responses and being denied and saying, sorry, we're not looking for that right now, etc., 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 and talking to Matt Field was like, you need a proposal. He actually sent me his proposal, which was really, really kind of him to do. I know it's a hard thing for you to share basically your way to make money at what you're doing for a living. So for him to share that with me was fantastic. Thank you, Matt. You're awesome. That changed everything. Once I got that, I talked to my mom, who was a graphic designer by trade, and we whipped up a proposal, which lives on www.danbrockettdrift.com. You just need to click on sponsorship proposal and download that sucker. It's not the best one, but it's a great start to see what you need quality-wise for a proposal. Because if you send people a wall of texts like I was doing, they're not going to read it and you're not going to get sponsored. It's that simple. Now, I thought I had a great package that I was pitching to these potential sponsors. I was doing a full season of Pro 1, a full season of Pro 2, plus any sponsors that were involved were going to be involved in the upcoming Motorcycle versus Car Drift Battle 4 filming that we were going to be doing at some point during the 2014 season. I mean, we already had the pedigree of having millions and millions and millions of views. I mean, our videos had more views than all Formula Drift videos combined. And I tried to portray that in a way that would entice sponsors to jump on board and be like, yeah, that will be exciting. Even if you suck at Formula D, we'll still have this multi-million view video that will come out at some point during 2014, and we'll capitalize on that instead. Cool. Boy, was I wrong. I pitched these and people were like, oh, that's cool. We do our own videos. We don't need your help. Oh, we have an in-house video guy. He does our stuff. And I'd go look at their videos and they would be absolute shit. So I was out there really hard hustling for 3 months with 0 sponsorships to my name at that point, other than what I had already had. Nothing new was coming in. I hadn't made $1 on sponsorships, and I was like, wow, I really, really suck at this. I mean, at this point, I was reaching way outside of drifting. I was reaching out to like Bimbo Bread and stuff, like to try to get sponsorships, and nothing was working. I couldn't even get responses from these people. Now, I went back and I looked through some of the old emails that I had sent back in late 2012, early 2013, and here is a short list of the companies that I either received no response from or went absolutely nowhere after months of trying. Powered by Max, Megan Racing, Core Integration, Koyo Radiators, Northern Radiator, DKC, which was a PR firm, JYG Customs, The Dirty Dash, which was a fun run, Tough Mudders, which was also a fun run, Recaro, Sparco, Fabricated Motorsports, Alpine Stars, which I totally understand would say no because of the sausage tube thing with Danny George, Simpson, Ray's Engineering, SSR, Icon, Triple Crown Drift, Ben Sopra, Rocket Bunny, Drive Motorsports, Ingress, which was a mobile phone game at the time, League of Legends, Blizzard, TurboTax, Bimbo Bread, Cadillac, Tesla, Liat Neck Braces, Fortunato, Lucas Oil, Redline Oil, Castrol, Penske, Spool, Federal Tires, Falcon Tires, Achilles Tires, whom I'd even worked with in the past, and Albuquerque Tortilla Company. And that's just the short list. This list could go on for days. Here's the long list of people that may have been interested in my program. Raw Brokerage, Status Racing Seats, CarbonFiberHoods.com, GK Tech, and Hankook Tires. That was it. That was all. 6 months worth of work. And that's the only people that I could get interested in Officer Dan as a program. I also had folks that were still on board with me from the Pro-Am/Motorcycle versus Car Battle video days. And those were Radium Engineering, Performance Fuel Injection, Motiva Performance, and a limited capacity, and Car Crafters and a limited capacity. And that was that. 6 months worth of soliciting and 5 maybes. You talk about disheartening. I was devastated. I was like, man, do I suck that bad? What am I doing wrong? This isn't working. I had no idea. Still don't, to this day, know what the hell I was doing. Still don't know what I'm doing. It was at this point that I knew what I needed to do next. Now, I didn't want to do what I did next, but I needed to do what I did next. The year was flying by, and currently all I had was the sponsors that I already had and a shell that I bought for $500 that was going to be my Formula Drift car. No parts on it, just a shell. So I did what any red-blooded American would do in my situation, and I destroyed my future and decided, fuck it. I'm going to take out my 401k and pursue my dreams of becoming a professional race car driver. So I made the hard decision right at that point to take out my 401k, which I had been building up at T-Mobile for 8 freaking years, and pursuing my dream. It was the scariest proposition that I'd ever had, because that little nest egg over the next 40 years probably would have netted me with a couple $1 million. Hey, who wants that when you're old? I'd rather be a greeter at Walmart, I guess. Anyway, I figured this was going to be my only chance at doing this, so why not throw everything I had into it, including my 401k? So I did. Now, what I didn't know at this point was all the penalties, taxes, and fees that would be associated with doing so. I didn't have anybody counseling me on this. I just thought that this would be my only way to actually make this happen. Since I wasn't good enough at getting sponsorships, I figured, oh, this will be an investment and I will get my money back once I actually start to get some monetary sponsorship. Boy, was I wrong. Anyway, I'm not trying to brag here, but 8 years worth of contributing to my 401k had net me with about $120,000 worth of equity. Now, what I didn't know is that I would incur a 25% income tax, 10% tax for the penalty for taking my 401k out before retirement age, and a 4.9% tax for the state of New Mexico on taking my 401k out as income. That immediately cut my $120,000 US dollars to $73,200 US dollars in the blink of a freaking eye. Meaning I had lost $46,800 in less than 10 seconds from when it transferred from my 401k to my bank account. $50 freaking thousand gone like that. But on the plus side, now I had actual working funds to make my dream happen. Now, what I decided on was to split it. So I was going to take half, around $35,000, to build the car, and the other 35 grand would basically pay for my first season of Formula D, entry fees, travel, hotels, food, etc., etc., etc. And boy, did I severely underestimate that cost. Now, I had been expressing my frustrations to Keith, and Keith was very well connected in many, many different industries, from selling many different brands of clothing in his stores, and we were coming up shooting blanks trying to find sponsorship for my program. So between the two of us, Keith, literally, like I said, knowing everybody, and me trying to pitch the idea that, hey, you could get this up and coming guy who's going to be in this video no matter what. So even if Formula D tanks, you'll still have this video to carry this sponsorship. through his obligations, we were getting zero. We were getting nothing. Zilch, nada. We had kind of talked about getting an agent involved. And we had been shopping around and nothing was looking promising. There wasn't like a specific agent that was really good at drifting stuff. There were lots of other agents out there that dealt with other motorsports that actually have money, like NASCAR and Indy and off-road racing and so on and so forth. But then you ask them about drifting and they're like, no, we don't want to touch that. That has no money involved with it. Which they're absolutely correct. Like, comparatively, all the other motorsports are here, drifting is here. Way low on the totem pole. Like, we ride the short bus for many reasons. And sponsors know that. Big companies know that. It's difficult, is what I'm trying to say here. So anyway, Keith had worked with Brian Deegan a bunch because they sold a lot of Metal Militia stuff. And Brian Deegan was working with an agency called Connections, spelled with an X, and his agent was Bob Walker. So Keith reached out to Bob, and Bob said, yes, we'd be interested in doing this. Let's get on a phone call and talk about the details. We'd end up going back and forth with Bob and a guy named Matt DeLawder for weeks on what an actual contract would look like between us. Because I technically didn't have a name, I didn't even have a car, I was just having a dream that I would pitching to sponsors. It was a difficult sell. So in the sponsorship / agent world, normally what would happen is a agent would take an athlete and they would pitch sponsorships and they would take a percentage of the money off of that. But because I didn't actually have the physical asset of a car or a team or anything of that matter, they needed a retainer to keep them on board to make everything happen. I fucking hated this idea. And I'm not joking about this. This is serious Dan. This is sad Dan. This is depressed Dan. This is step 2 in my fall down the stairs of Formula Drift. Long story short, dealing with Connections, we had decided that yes, it was a risk for them to take us on, but it was also a gigantic risk for me to pay them money and potentially get nothing. And they were like, well, that's kind of part of what it is, which I kind of think is fucking bullshit. Like I said, we actually had a lot going for us. We're a rookie team going into Formula Drift, competing in a professional series in Pro 1, plus having this huge video to come out later. It should have been an easy sell. Wasn't. Now, I was apprehensive about this whole thing from the beginning. I was going back and forth in my head and with Keith, and I was just like, dude, I don't think this is a good idea. I think this is a horrible idea. That's a lot of money. These dudes wanted $5,000 a month for a minimum of 3 months. They wanted the month before SEMA, the month of SEMA, and the month after SEMA to close on sponsorship deals for us. On top of that, 15 freaking grand that I was supposed to pay Connections, I was going to have 20% of any money that they got taken out of my sponsorships, plus 10% of any current sponsor money that may have existed from my sponsors that were already on board. Okay, I suck at this obviously, so after like a week of torment and thinking about this over and over and over, I had luckily gotten a new credit card that had like a $17,000 limit, and I was like, fine, let's freaking do it. And we signed with Connections and sent them $5,000 the month before SEMA. Now, like I said, I was desperate at this point because I sucked so bad at soliciting sponsors. I was worried that I was not going to be able to make this happen. I was going to run out of money from my 401k, and that was going to be it. I was going to be a one-season wonder, and that was it. That was going to be my career. That was going to be drifting for Officer Dan. Now, about a week after I paid that $5,000, Matt came back and emailed me a draft of the proposal, and it looked damn fantastic. I was like, okay, I understand why you would want an agent. They just made this amazing proposal for me with all these statistics and all of these facts and things that I would have never thought to put in a proposal. They obviously know what they're doing. So this is a great first step, and this is week one. I could totally understand why they charge so much money for this. I really hated it though. Like, I hated this from the beginning. I hated paying the money, but the sponsorship proposal made it 1% better than it was before. So with the freshly minted proposal, they asked for a list of my current sponsors that I was talking to at this time, and a list of sponsors that they would like me to reach out to on their behalf. I provided all of said information, and off connections went. This is when everything started to go downhill, and the fact that I hated this would be reiterated very strongly. 2 weeks after they had sent the proposal and sent it off to basically everybody on that list, we all got on a conference call, and they said, we are in talks with 3 people and maybe 4, and we will probably get some finalized information within this 3rd week. I was like, sick. Okay, cool. Maybe it was worth the $5,000, because I can pay for that if I can get like $40,000 in sponsorship. That will cover all of that. That's all we were asking for, was $40,000 to cover the expenses for the actual season itself. I know that sounds like a lot, but it's not a lot when you actually factor in everything for Formula D and doing all 7 rounds. Another week after that, we got on a conference call, and they said that 3 of those 4 had dropped out, and they were still in talks with 1. This would be the week before SEMA was supposed to start in 2013. Now, Connections was going to be representing me at SEMA, so I actually had a ball in my court. Somebody that had been to SEMA many times to solicit sponsorships for motorsports athletes and or motorsports athletes. Sick. Now, the day before we were supposed to leave for SEMA, we got on a conference call, and they were like, guys, all of the sponsorships that we were soliciting have backed out. We have 0 prospects, but we're going to be at SEMA for you, and that should produce at least 1 to 2 major title sponsors. I fucking hate this. Did I mention that I hate this? Because I hate this. It was also at that point that I had to write these motherfuckers another check for $5,000 USD for them to take over the month of SEMA. Now, here's where things started to go so far off of the hill that they fell down into a ravine covered in spikes with poison on them. They had done 0 to solicit any money, more parts, or anything from my current sponsors. My current sponsors were now going to give me parts, and they were now claiming that I owed them for 10% of the value of the parts that my sponsors were currently giving me, that they did nothing to get. And I'm like, no, I got those parts, I got those sponsorships, you got nothing above and beyond that. Why are you claiming that 10% of that is yours? And this is going into SEMA. And at this point, they'd been working on this for a month, and they had 0, zilch, nada. Just as much as I have, and I could have paid myself $5,000 freaking dollars to do that. Sorry, I'm getting a little heated here because this was a very emotional time in my life, and still makes me very fucking angry to this day. So anyway, I make the payment for $5,000 for SEMA week. Keith and I plan to go to SEMA and actually physically put the boots to the ground and pitch the living shit out of Officer Dan and my drift program. We can make this happen still. With the help of Connections and us being at SEMA, we're going to split up and divide and conquer. I did not know how fucking wrong I could be. I'm now $10,000 US down the drain, and we haven't even gone to SEMA yet. And I'm expected to put another $5,000 the month after this into this rolling shit show that is Connections. And basically at this point, I had paid $10,000 for a 7-page proposal, which would make each page worth $1,428. Yeah. And that is where I'm going to end this episode. Drenched in debt, depressed, sad, upset, and angry. And with no sponsors heading into SEMA. Anyway, I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. This is all in the past for me. I just get a little bit heated talking about it. And again, I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. And I'll see you guys next Monday for another Scotch and a Beer, where I continue the rolling shit show that is my pre-FD sponsorship pitch package. Take it easy. Catch you on the flip side. Hope Santa brings everything you wanted. Bye-bye.